Jake Miller stood at the entrance of the Galactic Academy of United Species. The building reached high into the purple sky of Centauri Prime. Glass walls reflected 3 suns that hung in different parts of the sky. Jake pulled his earth blue uniform straight and took a deep breath. First human at the academy, he whispered to himself. No pressure. The main hall buzzed with activity. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved between classes. Some floated, others walked on multiple legs, and a few seemed to teleport short distances. Jake tried not to stare. A tall figure made of crystal approached him. Light bounced inside its body, creating rainbow patterns on the floor. You must be the human, it said, its voice like wind chimes. I am Zixar. We share a dormitory room. Jake stuck out his hand. Nice to meet you. I'm Jake. Zixar looked at the extended hand with confusion. After an awkward moment, Jake lowered it. Follow me, Zixar said, gliding away. The others are waiting. Their room was on the 20th floor. The door opened to reveal a space bigger than Jake's entire house back on Earth. 3 beings turned to look at him. The first had tentacles instead of arms and legs. Its purple skin glistened with moisture. I am Vorthon, it gurgled. Welcome. Human. The second looked almost human-shaped but covered in bright blue feathers. Keela, she chirped. Pleased to meet you. Her head tilted at an impossible angle as she studied him. Hi, everyone, Jake said, setting down his bag. Thanks for the welcome. We have heard little about your species, Zixar said. Earth joined. The Federation only last year. Yeah, we're pretty new to all this, Jake admitted. He unpacked his few belongings while the others watched with interest. What is that? Vorthon pointed a tentacle at a photo Jake placed on his desk. My family. Mom, Dad, and my sister Lisa. They look similar to you, Keela observed. Do all humans share such resemblance? Well, families usually do. We get our features from our parents. The aliens exchanged looks Jake couldn't interpret. Tell us about Earth, Vorthon said. Our professor mentioned humans come from a Class 7 world. Jake sat on his bed, which adjusted automatically to his shape. Class 7? What does that mean? Primitive, Zixar said simply. No unified government until recently. Still using chemical propulsion. History of internal conflicts. Jake felt his face grow warm. We've come a long way. That's why I'm here. To learn and represent my planet. Of course, Keela said quickly. We meant no offense. Every species starts somewhere. Vorthon's tentacles weaved patterns in the air. In our basic galactic history class tomorrow, each species will present their origin story. Professor Talmar believes understanding our pasts helps build our future. History class? Jake perked up. That's my favorite subject. I love learning about how civilizations develop. Excellent, Zixar chimed. My people's history spans 12,000 years of recorded peace and crystal harmonics. The Vorthon Collective has existed for 8,000 years, Vorthon added proudly. We settled our earliest disputes through the dance of compromise. Keela fluffed her feathers. My species achieved spaceflight 5,000 years ago through meditation and unity of thought. Jake listened, feeling smaller with each revelation. Humans have only had written history for about 5,000 years total. How did your species resolve conflicts before achieving unity? Keela asked innocently. Jake paused. How could he explain war to beings who spoke of dance and meditation? It's complicated. We had different methods at different times. You can share tomorrow in class, Vorthon suggested. Professor Talmar encourages detailed presentations. As his roommates discussed their peaceful histories, Jake stared at the 3 suns setting through their window. Tomorrow he would have to explain humanity's blood-soaked path to the stars. How could he make them understand that Earth's wars had shaped its people? That conflict had driven innovation? That humanity's greatest achievements often came from its darkest moments? He pulled out his tablet and began making notes. This would be the most important history presentation of his life. The next morning, Jake followed his roommates through the academy's winding corridors. Students from dozens of worlds filled the hallways. Some slithered along the walls, others hovered near the ceiling, and many walked on various numbers of legs. The history classroom was a perfect sphere with no clear floor or ceiling. Seats floated at different angles, each adjusting to its occupant's needs. Jake grabbed a human-designed chair and tried not to look dizzy as other students sat upside down relative to him. Professor Talmar entered through a portal in the wall. The instructor looked like a mixture of plant and animal, with bark-like skin and eyes that glowed soft green. Vines grew from its head instead of hair. "Welcome, students," Talmar said in a voice like rustling leaves. "Today begins our journey through the histories of our united galaxy." The professor waved a branch-like arm, and holographic displays appeared around the room. Each species will present their civilization story. These presentations will help us understand our different paths to the stars. A student that looked like living smoke raised a tendril. "How long should our presentations be, Professor?" "As long as needed to cover your major historical events," Talmar replied. "Wars, if any, occurred, scientific breakthroughs, social changes, first contact protocols." Jake felt his stomach tighten at the mention of wars. He glanced at his roommates, who seemed relaxed and eager. "Let us begin with the Crystalline Collective," Talmar said, gesturing to Zixar. Zixar floated to the center of the sphere. His body caught the room's light, sending rainbows dancing across the walls. "My people emerged from the crystal caves of Luxaria 12,000 years ago," he began. "We discovered that harmonic frequencies could reshape matter itself. Images appeared showing crystalline beings singing in vast caves. Mountains moved and cities grew from pure sound. We never experienced conflict," Zixar continued. "Disagreements were resolved through harmonic meditation. Each voice added to our collective song made us stronger." Jake scribbled notes, amazed by the peaceful civilization. Next came Vorthan. The tentacled student undulated to the center. "The Vorthan Collective began in our planet's deep oceans," it gurgled. "When we first encountered different tribes, we developed the dance of compromise. Holographic oceans filled the room. Tentacled beings swirled around each other in complex patterns. If two groups disagreed," Vorthan explained, "they would dance. The most beautiful and complex choreography would determine the solution. This way, creativity replaced violence." Jake's amazement grew. These species had found ways to avoid conflict entirely. Keela presented next, her feathers rustling with excitement. "My people, the aviarians, took to the skies early in our evolution. Height gave us perspective. We learned that all conflicts looked small from above. Images showed bird-like beings soaring over their planet, cities built in clouds, connected by bridges of woven air. When disagreements arose," Keela chirped, "we would fly together until we found common ground. Unity of thought achieved through unity of flight." As more species presented, a pattern emerged. The nebula dwellers resolved disputes through color displays. The silicon-based thermites used temperature modulation. The aquatic telepaths simply shared thoughts until consensus formed. Not one species mentioned war. Not one spoke of weapons or conquest. "Tomorrow," Professor Talmar announced as class ended, "we will hear from our newest member species. Jake Miller will present Earth's history." All eyes turned to Jake. Multiple eyes, compound eyes, photoceptors, and sensory organs he couldn't identify. "I look forward to learning about your peaceful evolution," a gelatinous student bubbled happily. Jake forced a smile. "Right. Peaceful." Back in their room, Jake stared at his tablet. How could he explain the world wars? Nuclear weapons? The Cold War? Humanity's entire history was written in blood and conflict. "Is something wrong?" Keela asked, noticing his distress. "Just organizing my thoughts," Jake said. "Earth's history is complex." "All histories are complex," Zixar chimed reassuringly. "Though I'm curious how your species achieved unity. Was it through sound like mine? Dance like Vorthan's? Meditation? Like Keela's?" Jake's throat felt dry. Not exactly. His roommates waited expectantly. We had some conflicts to resolve first, Jake said carefully. Conflicts? Vorthan's tentacles curled in confusion. Surely nothing that couldn't be solved peacefully. Jake turned back to his tablet. Tomorrow he would have to explain words his classmates might not even understand. War, genocide, revolution, empire. How could he make them understand that humanity's greatest achievements came from its greatest failures? Jake sat in the Academy's library, surrounded by floating screens showing Earth's history. Images of battles, revolutions, and mushroom clouds flickered in the air. He rubbed his tired eyes. Need help? A familiar voice asked. Jake looked up to see Amy Roberts, the only other human student at the Academy. Her brown hair was tied back and she carried a stack of old Earth books. Amy. Yes, please. I'm trying to figure out how to present our history without scaring everyone. Amy sat down, placing the books on the table. They automatically translated into various alien languages. Let me guess. They all have peaceful histories. Every single one. The crystallines sing their problems away. The Vorthons dance. The Aviarians fly until they agree. Jake gestured at his screens. And we have this. Amy looked at the images of warfare. We need to be smart about this. Show them the whole picture, not just the violence. But how do I explain nuclear weapons to beings who solve disputes with interpretive dance? Before Amy could answer, Zixar glided into the library. His crystalline body dimmed when he saw the images. Jake, are those weapons? Jake quickly minimized some screens. Just historical artifacts. Zixar moved closer, light refracting nervously through his body. That explosion, it's not natural. It's called a nuclear bomb, Amy said carefully. From one of our past conflicts. You created artificial suns as weapons? Zixar's chime sounded alarmed. Vorthan and Keela entered the library, drawn by Zixar's distressed harmonics. What's wrong? Keela asked, then saw the screens. Are those dead bodies? Jake's heart sank. It's from a historical event called World War II. World War? Vorthan's tentacles coiled tightly. Your entire world fought at once? Twice, actually, Amy said, plus hundreds of smaller conflicts. The three aliens moved closer together. A defensive gesture Jake had learned meant fear. How many died? Keela whispered. Jake hesitated. In the World Wars? About 100 million combined. The library fell silent. Other students from various species had gathered, drawn by the commotion. They stared at the human students with mixtures of fear and disgust. 100 million, Zixar repeated, his body almost colorless now. My entire species numbers only 50 million. You could have destroyed yourselves, Vorthan said. How did you survive? Amy stepped forward. Because we learned. Each war taught us something, made us stronger, more united. United through death? A spider-like student clicked from a nearby table. United through survival, Jake corrected. Look, I know it's hard to understand. Hard? Keela's feathers stood on, and as it's horrifying. You're saying humans killed each other for resources? For ideas? For land? Yes, Amy said simply. But also no. It's more complex than that. A small crowd had formed. Whispers in various languages filled the air. Jake caught words like savage, dangerous, and primitive. Maybe we should finish preparing alone, Jake suggested. His roommates backed away slowly. Yes, perhaps that's best, Zixar said. As the aliens left, Jake heard Vorthan whisper, Should we request different room assignments? Amy touched Jake's shoulder. Hey, we knew this would be tough. They're afraid of us now. They don't understand. Yet, tomorrow we'll show them everything. Not just the wars, but what came after. The United Nations, the Mars colonies, how we turned weapons into tools. Jake looked at the screens again. What if they're right? What if we are just savages who happen to reach space? No, Amy said firmly. We're survivors who learned from our mistakes. That's what makes us special. They worked late into the night, organizing humanity's story. Jake noticed other students avoiding their table. Conversations stopped when they passed. We'll start with early humans, Amy suggested. Show them we weren't always violent. Then gradually introduce conflict? Right. And always connect it to progress. The medical advances from battlefield surgery. The technology from the space race. Show them the pattern. Jake nodded, but worry gnawed at him. How could peaceful species ever understand that humanity's greatest leaps came from its darkest moments? Tomorrow would either bridge the gap between humans and aliens or widen it forever. The spherical classroom felt colder today. Jake noticed alien students sitting farther from the human section than usual. Whispered conversations stopped when he and Amy entered. Professor Talmar's vines rustled with concern. Before we begin, I must remind everyone that we are here to learn and understand, not to judge. Jake moved to the center of the sphere. Amy stood beside him with their prepared materials. His hands shook slightly as he activated the holographic display. Earth's history begins 4.5 billion years ago, Jake started. But human history really starts about 300,000 years ago in Africa. Images appeared showing early humans around fires, creating tools, painting on cave walls. Our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, small family groups working together to survive. The aliens relaxed slightly at these peaceful images. For thousands of years, humans lived in harmony with nature. Jake continued. Then we discovered agriculture. The hologram showed the first farms, early villages growing into towns. As populations grew, so did complexity. Different groups developed different cultures, languages, and beliefs. A tentacled student raised an appendage. When did the violence begin? Jake took a breath. With resources. As groups grew, they competed for land and water. The first images of conflict appeared, ancient warriors with spears and shields. Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. Early conflicts were small, Amy added. Tribal disputes, usually dozens of casualties at most. Dozens? Keela chirped in distress. Of your own species? Yes, Jake said. But these conflicts also drove innovation. Bronze weapons led to bronze tools. Military strategies became organizational systems. The presentation moved through history. Egyptian pyramids built by unified kingdoms. Greek democracy born from city-state conflicts. Roman roads designed for legions but used for trade. Each empire rose through conquest, Jake explained. But also spread knowledge, technology, and culture. Empire? Zixar's crystals darkened. You mean systematic conquest of other humans? Yes, but show them the Roman medical advances, Amy interrupted. How battlefield surgery saved lives. Jake switched to images of Roman surgical tools, aqueducts, architecture. War created problems, but solving those problems advanced civilization. A gaseous alien hissed. You're justifying violence. No, Amy said firmly. We're explaining how we learned from it. The presentation reached the Middle Ages. Knights, castles, and the Crusades appeared on screen. The alien audience grew more agitated. Religious wars? A multi-eyed being buzzed. You killed for beliefs? Humans struggled with differences, Jake admitted. But look, the Islamic Golden Age preserved Greek knowledge. Medieval monasteries became centers of learning. Even during wars, knowledge survived and spread. Professor Talmar raised a vine. Perhaps we should pause. Please, Jake said. Let us finish. It gets better. He showed the Renaissance. Art and science flourishing amid Italian city-state conflicts. The age of exploration, driven by competition but connecting continents. The printing press, Amy pointed out. Invented to spread ideas faster than armies could suppress them. Gunpowder, Jake added. Created for war but used in mining and construction. They reached the Industrial Revolution. Factories, steam engines, and railroads filled the display. Competition between nations drove innovation, Jake explained. Each country tried to outproduce others. Which led to bigger wars, Vorthan observed, grimly. Jake nodded. Yes, we're coming to those. The American Civil War appeared. Brothers fighting brothers over slavery and unity. You enslaved your own species? The horror in the room was palpable. Some did, Amy said quietly. And others fought to end it. 600,000 died to free millions. The presentation showed medical advances from the war, antiseptics, prosthetics, ambulance systems. From carnage came caring, Jake said. We learned to save lives by trying to save soldiers. As they approached the 20th century, Jake paused. The next part is difficult, but please remember we survived it. We learned from it. We became better because of it. The image of 1914 Europe appeared on screen. The room held its breath. This is World War I, Jake said. The war to end all wars. It didn't. Trenches, gas attacks, and millions of casualties filled the display. Several aliens turned away. How? Keela whispered. How could you do this to each other? Because we hadn't learned enough yet, Amy answered. But watch what came next. The League of Nations, women's suffrage, medical breakthroughs appeared. Even our darkest hours pushed us toward light, Jake said. But first, we had to face our darkest hour of all. Jake's voice trembled as the hologram changed. 1939, World War II begins. The sphere filled with images of Nazi rallies, Pearl Harbor, and the Holocaust. Several aliens made distressed sounds in their native languages. This can't be real. Zixar chimed, his crystalline body flickering. 6 million of your own kind? Systematic extermination? It's real, Amy confirmed quietly. The Holocaust taught us the depths of evil humans could reach. Stop this, a snake-like alien hissed. We don't need to see more death. You need to see what came after, Jake insisted. He showed images of the Normandy invasion, Allied forces liberating concentration camps, the fall of Berlin. Humans from different nations united against evil, Amy explained. Former enemies became allies. The British and Americans joined with the Soviets. But the cost? Vorthan's tentacles writhed. 50 million dead? Entire cities destroyed? Yes, Jake said, which is why what happened next is so important. The image shifted. A bright flash filled the sphere, followed by a mushroom cloud rising over Hiroshima. Complete silence fell. Even Professor Talmar's vines stopped rustling. You split the atom, Keela whispered. You turned the fundamental building block of matter into a weapon. August 6, 1945, Jake said. Hiroshima. 3 days later, Nagasaki. Over 200,000 died. A crystalline student shattered their chair by accident. Others backed away from the humans. You became death, a gaseous being wheezed. Destroyers of worlds. That's what Robert Oppenheimer said, Amy nodded. The scientist who helped create it, he quoted ancient Earth scripture, now I am become death, destroyer of worlds. You regretted it? Professor Talmar leaned forward. Many did. Which is why scientists formed international controls. The same energy that destroyed cities now powers them. Jake showed nuclear power plants, medical isotopes, and space propulsion systems. But it didn't end there, he continued. The display showed nuclear test footage. The Cold War. 2 superpowers aimed thousands of these weapons at each other. Thousands? Multiple voices cried out. At the peak, over 70,000 nuclear weapons existed on Earth, Amy said. Several aliens left the room. Others huddled together in fear. You're insane, a reptilian student said. Your entire species is insane. Maybe, Jake admitted. But we survived. Want to know how? The remaining students nodded reluctantly. Mad, Amy said. Mutually assured destruction. The weapons became so powerful that using them meant everyone would die. So you chose not to? Keela asked. Exactly. The fear of total annihilation forced us to talk instead of fight. Jake showed the United Nations building. From the ashes of World War II, we created this. A place where all nations could speak. The Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, Amy added. START agreements, Nuclear reduction talks. We slowly stepped back from the brink. The same rocket technology that carried warheads took humans to space, Jake continued. The space race began as competition but became cooperation. Images of the moon landing filled the sphere. An American flag planted in lunar soil. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, Jake quoted. Neil Armstrong didn't say, "For America." He said, "For mankind." All of us. The International Space Station appeared next. Former enemies working together in space, Russians and Americans, Japanese and Europeans, the same nations that once destroyed each other's cities, now build together among the stars. From splitting atoms for war, Amy said, we learned to fuse them for unlimited clean energy. Medical scanners from weapon detection systems, GPS from military satellites. You're saying, Professor Talmar spoke slowly, that your greatest horrors led to your greatest achievements? We're saying we learned, Jake replied. Every war, every weapon, every death taught us something. The atomic bomb taught us the ultimate lesson. Which was? Zixar asked. That we had to change or die, Amy answered. That our conflicts had grown too large for our world. That survival meant cooperation. Jake looked around the room. We're not proud of our history, but we're proud that we learned from it, that we survived it, that we chose unity over extinction. The nuclear age didn't end humanity, Amy concluded. It ended humanity's isolation. It forced us to become one world, and eventually it helped us reach the stars. The room remained quiet, but the mood had shifted from horror to contemplation. Even the aliens who had left were peering back through the doorway. Jake took a deep breath. The worst was over. Now came the part that mattered most. The Cold War could have ended everything, he began. Instead, it created something beautiful. The hologram showed two rockets side by side, one American, one Soviet. Competition drove us to space, Amy explained. Each side wanted to prove their system was better. But what started as rivalry became bigger than politics. The display showed Sputnik orbiting Earth, followed by Yuri Gagarin's smiling face. A Soviet went to space first, Jake said. Then an American walked on the moon. Each achievement pushed the other to do more. You turned war into exploration? Keela's feathers smoothed slightly. Exactly. The same scientists who built missiles built spacecraft. The same competition that created weapons created wonder. Amy showed the Apollo-Soyuz, handshake in orbit. 1975. American and Soviet astronauts shaking hands in space. Former enemies becoming friends above the world that divided them. But the real changes happened on Earth, Jake continued. Let me show you what war taught us about healing. The display filled with medical advances. Antibiotics, blood banks, plastic surgery, prosthetic limbs. Penicillin, Amy pointed out. Discovered by accident, mass-produced for wounded soldiers. Now it saves millions of lives yearly. Trauma surgery, Jake added. Developed in war zones, surgeons learned to save lives under impossible conditions. Those techniques now work in every hospital. A multi-armed alien raised several appendages. You learned to heal by learning to hurt? We learned to heal because we had to save those who were hurt, Amy corrected. Every battlefield produced new medical knowledge. Jake showed more examples. Blood transfusions from World War I, kidney dialysis from the Korean War, reconstructive surgery from Vietnam. The internet, Amy continued, created as a military communication network that could survive nuclear attack. Now it connects your worlds to ours. GPS satellites, Jake added, designed to guide missiles. Now they help everyone navigate. The same technology that targeted destruction now prevents people from getting lost. The images shifted to show weather satellites, communication, networks, and global monitoring systems. Military spy satellites became Earth observation systems, Jake explained. They track climate change, predict storms, and help farmers grow food. Nuclear submarines technology created deep-sea research vessels, Amy said. Radar systems designed to spot bombers now track bird migrations and study weather. Orthon's tentacles swayed thoughtfully. Every weapon became a tool? Not every one, Jake admitted, but many. And more importantly, we learned from each conflict. He showed the European Union flag. Nations that fought for centuries now share currencies and open borders. Former battlefields became centers of cooperation. Japan and the United States, Amy added, from bitter enemies to closest allies in one generation. The Marshall Plan rebuilt enemies into partners. The display showed modern Earth, satellites, connecting continents, international research stations, global health organizations. The World Health Organization emerged from wartime medical cooperation, Jake explained. The International Atomic Energy Agency from nuclear weapons control. Every global institution grew from conflict resolution. We learned that our differences made us stronger when combined, Amy said. Military alliances became trade partnerships. Defense treaties became scientific collaborations. Jake showed images of international disaster relief. Armies trained for destruction now deploy for rescue missions. Military logistics save lives in earthquakes and tsunamis. The same ships that once carried invasion forces now carry humanitarian aid, Amy continued. The same planes that dropped bombs now drop food and medicine. Professor Talmar's vines swayed gently. You transformed your capacity for destruction into a capacity for construction. Because we had to, Jake said. Each war grew larger until we realized the next one could end everything. So we chose cooperation over extinction. Look at cybersecurity. Amy pointed to connected networks. Created to protect military systems, now it protects everyone's privacy and commerce. Space technology from missile programs now monitors asteroids that could threaten any planet, Jake added. Our weapons of war became shields for all worlds. The presentation showed children from different nations playing together. Scientists, collaborating across borders, joint space missions including alien species. This is who we became, Jake concluded. Not because we were peaceful, but because we learned the cost of conflict. We turned our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. Competition still drives us, Amy said. But now we compete to help, to discover, to explore. We race to Mars not to claim it, but to share it. The room was quiet, but it was a different silence than before, thoughtful rather than fearful. Jake's voice grew stronger as he approached the end. Everything changed when we detected the first signals from space. The hologram showed radio telescopes pointing at the stars, screens displaying mysterious patterns. 252. The message, Amy said. We knew we weren't alone. Every nation on Earth received it simultaneously. What did it say? A cloud-like being swirled anxiously. It was a mathematical sequence followed by star charts, Jake explained, an invitation to join something bigger. The display showed Earth's response, chaotic at first. Different nations argued about who should reply, what to say, how to proceed. Old habits almost ruined everything, Amy admitted. Some wanted to hide, others wanted to arm ourselves. But then something amazing happened. Jake showed the United Nations Assembly, representatives from every nation standing together. For the first time in human history, we spoke with one voice. The African Union's proposal was accepted. We would answer as Earth, not as separate nations. What changed their minds? Keela asked, leaning forward. Our history, Jake said. Every diplomat knew what division had cost us. Every leader had studied our wars. We couldn't face the galaxy divided. Amy displayed the Earth Alliance Charter. Within 6 months, we had a unified government. Not because we conquered each other, but because we chose unity. Former enemies wrote our response together, Jake continued. American and Chinese scientists, Russian and European engineers, African and South American diplomats. Every conflict taught us how to cooperate. The image showed humanity's first interstellar message being transmitted from multiple locations simultaneously. We sent our history, Amy explained. All of it, the good and terrible. We showed other species who we really were. You revealed your violence? Zixar's crystals brightened with surprise. We revealed our growth, Jake corrected. We showed that we could learn, change, become better. that our greatest strength was overcoming our greatest weakness. The presentation displayed Earth's rapid transformation. Military budgets shifted to space programs. Weapons factories became shipyards. Soldiers trained as explorers. The same strategies used for D-Day planned our first colony ships, Amy pointed out. Military logistics that once moved armies now moved humanity to the stars. Nuclear weapons stockpiles provided fuel for fusion rockets, Jake added. We literally turned our swords into starships. Professor Talmar rustled thoughtfully. Your warlike nature prepared you for space exploration? Think about it, Amy said. Space is hostile. Colonies require the same planning as military campaigns. Resource management, chain of command, emergency protocols, all developed through conflict. Jake showed human colonists on Mars working together despite their different origins. Russians and Americans who once aimed missiles at each other now build habitats side by side. Our soldiers became peacekeepers, he continued. Not just for humanity, but for the galaxy. Who better to prevent conflicts than those who understand their cost? The display showed the first contact ceremony, humans meeting another species, for the first time. We were ready, Amy said. Centuries of diplomacy between enemies prepared us for alien negotiations. Every peace treaty taught us compromise. Every alliance showed us strength in diversity. When we met the Zentari, Jake referred to the first alien contact. They were surprised. Humans adapted quickly to their customs. We'd spent centuries learning to understand each other. Understanding aliens was just the next step. A four-eyed student spoke up. But weren't other species afraid of your violent past? Some were, Jake admitted. Until they saw our present. We shared technologies that came from war but served peace. Medical advances, communication systems, protective shields. We became translators, Amy added. When two species couldn't understand each other, humans often mediated. We knew miscommunication could lead to conflict. The hologram showed the Galactic Federation assembly, with humans serving in key positions. Your species now leads the Federation's Conflict Resolution Council, Professor Talmar noted. This presentation explains why. Jake smiled. Who better to prevent wars than those who survived them? Who better to build peace than those who knew its absence? We earned our place through experience, Amy concluded. Not despite our history, but because of it. Every mistake taught us wisdom. Every conflict prepared us for cooperation. The presentation neared its end, showing Earth's transformation from a divided world to a unified force for galactic peace. The presentation ended. Jake and Amy stood in the center of the sphere waiting. The silence stretched until Zixar's chimes broke it. I must apologize, the crystalline being said, his body glowing with soft blues and greens. We judged you without understanding. Vorthan's tentacles rippled in agreement. My people spent 10,000 years in peace, yes, but we also spent 10,000 years without real progress. Same dances, same solutions, same limitations. You achieved in centuries what took us millennia, Keela added, her feathers settling into calm patterns. Because you had to. Because survival demanded it. Professor Talmar moved forward, vines spreading in what Jake had learned was approval. Class, what have we learned today? A gaseous student swirled thoughtfully. That conflict can drive innovation? That peace without challenge leads to stagnation? Suggested another. More than that, Professor Talmar said. We've learned that there are many paths to wisdom. The crystallines found it through harmony, the Vorthans through movement, the aviarians through perspective, and humans through survival. Jake felt tension leaving his shoulders. We're not proud of our wars, but we're proud of overcoming them. You shouldn't be ashamed, Zixar chimed. My people avoided conflict by living in isolation for millennia. When we finally met another species, we nearly shattered from fear. You prepared yourselves through experience. Amy smiled. That's why humans adapt so quickly to new species. We've spent our entire history learning to understand differences. A spider-like student clicked forward. Is it true that humans mediated the Proxima trade dispute? Yes, Jake nodded. We understood both sides because we'd had similar conflicts in our history. And the Andromedan territory crisis? Another asked. Human diplomats drew from Earth's history of border disputes, Amy confirmed. What seemed impossible to others, we'd solved before? Keela fluffed her feathers thoughtfully. My grandmother told me humans were the only species to volunteer for the plague relief mission to Sector 7. We had experience with pandemics, Jake explained. The Black Death, Spanish flu, COVID-19. We knew how to respond quickly, how to organize medical resources. Your wars created your medics, Vorthon observed. Your conflicts created your diplomats. Your struggles created your strength. Professor Talmar's eyes glowed brighter. The Galactic Academy has a proposal. Would you consider teaching a new course? Conflict resolution through historical experience? Jake and Amy exchanged surprised looks. Teach? We're just students. You're humans, the professor replied. That makes you experts in something no other species truly understands, transformation through adversity. The mood in the room had completely changed. Where there had been fear, now there was fascination. Where there had been disgust, now there was respect. I want to understand more, Zixar said. How do you process trauma? How do you forgive enemies? How do you turn fear into fuel for progress? These are questions many species need answered, Professor Talmar agreed. The galaxy grows more complex. New challenges arise. Perhaps what we need is not just harmony, but the wisdom that comes from overcoming discord. Over the following days, Jake and Amy found themselves surrounded by curious students. The library filled with aliens studying human history. Questions came from all directions. How did Europe unite after so many wars? What made enemies become allies? How do you rebuild after destruction? Jake started a study group focused on human conflict resolution. Amy began translating Earth's peace treaties for alien analysis. Their room became a hub of interspecies learning. You know what's funny? Jake told Amy one evening. They're learning from our mistakes, and we're learning from their successes, Amy replied. That's what the Federation is really about. Zixar floated past their door. Jake, the debate club is discussing whether controlled competition could benefit crystalline society. Will you join? Debate club? Jake laughed. That's new. Amy started it, Keela chirped from down the hall. She said constructive argument is healthy. We're testing the hypothesis. As Jake headed to the debate, he felt something he hadn't expected. Pride. Not in humanity's wars, but in humanity's growth. They had taken their darkest chapters and turned them into teaching moments for the galaxy. Earth's warriors had become its greatest peacemakers. And perhaps that was humanity's true triumph. Not winning wars, but learning to prevent them. The first human students at the Galactic Academy had succeeded in their mission. They had shown the galaxy that strength came not from perfection, but from perseverance. Not from peace alone, but from the wisdom earned through conflict. And in the vast library of galactic knowledge, human history would stand as a testament to redemption, a violent species that chose peace, a warlike race that became teachers, a divided world that united the stars.